Why do power cords, ends, and adapters melt or burn up on RVs? Well, that's the question that's going to get answered today in Staying on the Road. And then in the RV Life, we're going to talk about recovering after an accident in an RV. And then in the next stop, we're going to visit Whitehall, Montana, and talk to an old man named Ron Hunt and the Jefferson Valley Museum. And then in RV Envy, we're going to talk about tough times, how to buy smart, and a new format in part of our show. This is Eric Stark with the Smart RVer Podcast, delivering the smarts you need to enjoy the freedom of the RV lifestyle without the fear of breaking down. Let's talk everything RV. Today is episode 160. Let's get into it. Alexis is here, ready to go, right?
Woo, I'm ready.
She's ready. She's shaking her head ready.
Yep.
Yep. Got her cup full of coffee.
I do. Yeah, it's a coffee day today.
Or some sort of adult beverage. Ready to do it. Okay, now we have a great show that's been planned today. So before we get into it, I just want to remind everybody, since we're kind of late in the game now, we're at the end of September, and we haven't talked about winterizing your RV. It was on our schedule, but it just never got into the mix.
Oh, no.
But we have other episodes on winterizing your RV. So in the description today, you'll be able to find links to the previous episodes. But just a reminder, winterize your RV.
Yes.
Get it done while you can if you need to.
Right now.
If you live in sunny Southern California, you don't have to.
Right.
Live in North Dakota, you might want to consider it today. Now, another thing, before we dive into this, as I'm reading my notes, I realize I don't have my notes, but we're going to dig into it. So ZipD makes an awning, a power awning for Airstream trailers. It might be on other RVs, but this one's specifically for Airstreams. And it's called the Relax awning. This awning is kind of a complex little beast. And it's an interesting thing. You know, we have a customer who had a problem with a dealership. They did some work on his RV and they disconnected the panel to it. And for whatever reason, they were in there by it and probably accidentally. And this awning, you know, they hooked it up wrong and the awning wouldn't work and blah, blah, blah. So go back and forth. And so it turns out it's wired wrong. But one of the things about this awning, because, you know, he's asking me about it, I kind of dug into the research on it. Whenever you have one of these ZipD awnings, a power awning, and you have this relax control panel, before you ever deploy the awning, you always want to hit the close button to make sure it always resets the sensors. Mm-hmm. It's a sensor-driven awning.
Okay.
And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
And leave it to Airstream to come up with something. I mean, ZipD awnings are really nice, but I think this is kind of not so nice. Even the customer's like, I wish I just had a manual awning, not a power awning.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little more complex for the typical person to dig into, unless you get the manual or talk to ZipD and learn a little bit about it, and then it's not so complex. But one thing that really stood out to me, besides having to hit close, and I guess that's a big thing with ZipD owners, hit close before you open it, hit close, 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 is that if the awning gets stuck in the out position and you need to bring it back in manually, it's quite a chore. I was reading the instructions like, wow, that's some work. And you got to take things apart, like take the gas struts off and do this, do that,
Wow.
The other thing. It's like more than 2 or 3 steps.
Oh, boy.
And so I was thinking that, you know, if you have an Airstream with one of these power ZipD awnings on it, you might want to get out the manual and understand how to do that and make sure you have at least those tools with you. So if you ever find yourself with that awning stuck out, and I know you will, because another thing it says in the instructions, do not ever lose power to the awning when it's in the extended position. So your battery goes dead, something goes wrong, you know, fuse blows, I don't know, anything could happen, and then all of a sudden, the awning just bonks out.
Wow.
So you probably really need to understand how your awning works and make sure you have the right tools to bring it back in if you have to.
No kidding.
You know, properly, not desperation, cut the fabric and tear the thing off and throw it away. We don't want to do that.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. That's just a little pointer here from Eric to make your day better or worse. All right, now that's going to take us to enjoying the RV life. We're going to, oh boy, this is going downhill, Alexis. This isn't so positive either.
Not very positive.
And now we're going to talk about recovering after an RV accident.
Yeah.
You know, Alexis is going to take this in a different direction, but it just dawned on me that, like, after you buy your RV, you got to recover from that accident.
That's true. Financially.
Yeah, that sounds pretty negative. Sorry, people. All right. So, Alex, we're talking about an accident on the highway. You know, you crash into someone crashes into you. We're talking not a little fender bender thing either, where it's, you know, this is a big accident.
Right.
Where things really go wrong. All right, Alexis, take it away.
All right. Well, since we're not talking about your finances today, I mean, this probably does involve, especially if you don't have insurance, which this is a call to action to get insurance, okay? We've talked about this before, so I won't go into that. But the first thing you want to do when you do, because it's a scary thing when this happens, whatever the case may be, you want to check yourself first. Because if you're on the side of the road, make sure you're not just jumping out of the truck or out of the RV, depending on what you have, and, you know, getting hit by another car. We don't want that to happen. So prioritize your safety above all else. And if you have passengers, their safety as well. Check for injuries. If medical attention is needed, be sure to do that first. And then assess your damage on your RV or trailer or what. That's what you're going to want to do secondly. You know, make sure you're safe, your family's safe, and then check what happened to your RV. I don't know. Notify your insurance provider is probably next. That's an important
you're going to have to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Take pictures. Take lots of pictures. Make sure there's proof, because they always want pictures and more. So yeah, having insurance, using it is okay. Make sure you stay connected and seek support is on here. And make sure that you're okay, that other people have gone through this. So asking, you know, if you're on a forum, asking what they did can sometimes make you feel better, not so alone. And then you might be a little shaken up for the next trip. You know, once you get all the repairs done, once it's all dealt with, you might be a little, you don't want to really go out. Like, get back on the horse after you've been bucked off is not always an easy thing to do. But, you know, it happens. You can all recover. And if you want to keep RVing, you should. What do you think?
Yeah, that's right. You know, accidents happen, you know.
They do.
I mean, we're on a major highway here in the Bitterroot Valley in Montana, and, you know, we see a lot of accidents.
Yeah.
You know, it's common. And with an RV, it's easy to hit someone to hit you. Even though you got this big RV, people don't see you.
Yeah, right.
You know, someone just does something stupid, or you get a blowout, you lose control. You see countless trailers turned over on the internet.
Yeah.
You know, you can get images of that within seconds. You know, trailer turned over on, you know, Google that, trailer turned over, RV turned over, millions of them. RV on fire, millions of them. You know, so things happen. And this is a great article. So Alexis has this on the website, the smartrver.com, under Enjoying the RV Life. And the title of it is Recovering After an RV Accident. And, you know, it might not be something I'm not really worried about that today. You kind of got the teenager attitude towards it, you know.
Right.
But having it in mind, just, you know, you read it once and, you know, that's all you need to do. Just have it there. And it might not even be yourself that has the problem with the accident. Maybe you just go through it and you roll through the motions. Not a big deal. You know, you fight with your insurance company, all the normal stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe your spouse is suffering from it, you know, having a difficult time. Like, she don't trust you now, or you don't trust you now.
Right.
Or your kid's like, man, Dad is horrible. Man, he almost killed us, you know.
Yeah.
So there could be a little bit more to it, you know. So you don't want to think of it too lightly, but you don't want it to change your life, how you RV, you know.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, if you want to drive like a maniac, continue to do it. Just remember, this article's here for you when it all falls apart.
There you go.
Just kidding.
Oh, my.
So anyways, all right. So it's a great article. Again, it's on the smartrver.com under the heading Enjoying the RV Life. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to move on to staying on the road. And, you know, with that being said, though, about the RV life, you know, the season's coming to the end here, so make sure you get any last-minute trips in now while you still can. And I'm talking about the people in the States where you got to winterize and start snowing and all that. Some people, it doesn't even bother them. You know, you're living in New Mexico, Arizona.
Snowbirds, yeah.
Life goes on. But anyways, staying on the road. Why do power cords, ends, and adapters melt or burn up? So what we're talking about is your RV, the 30 amp and 50 amp cord and adapters and ends that you use, that you plug into shore power or a generator, whatever that external power source is. Could be your home, your neighbor's house. You know, you could be stealing power from a line somewhere, ever how you're getting it. You know, we don't care. These cords and ends burn up, and we see it quite a bit. It's not an uncommon thing. And some people are really baffled by this because they don't understand, because it's a safety issue. The short answer is it's just bad connection. But how do those connections become bad? Put it in perspective. I might be jumping the gun here a little bit, but think of a refrigerator in your house. When you plug it in for the first time, you got to push it into the wall with your hand. When you go to unplug it 10 years later, you got to pull it out. It's kind of a hassle. That's because that cord and that outlet are never used other than being plugged into once, and it's left alone. TV outlets are the same thing. If you put your TV in the wall and you never move it or anything, 10 years go by, you finally decide to dust all the spiders and stuff out of the back, cobwebs and dead mice and things. Thinking, boy, Eric, where do you live? No. That cord pulls out tight. Yeah. That's because it's just sitting in there. It's not getting used all the time. Right. Now, like a vacuum cord over time, they get loose and sloppy. You got to bend little prongs out or in to make them stay in tight, right? Think of that. Now, your RV, it also depends on you too. There are some things we do that cause the problems. First off, and I've said this more than once, you need to know what you have in your RV. It's a 50 amp service or a 30 amp. 50 amp is 4-prong, 30 is 3-prong. An RV 30 amp is RV 30 amp. It doesn't work on anything else. In fact, any other 3-prong outlets for the most part are always 220 volts. An RV 30 amp is 110 volts. So it's important you know that, because people try to make these things work and they cause problems. Now, the 50 amp is just a 4-prong 50 amp. It's very similar to like a welding cord, a 50 amp welding cord, or a compressor that's 50 amps, an air compressor. So it's more commercial, more industrial, if you will. Nonetheless, determine what you have and know what you have. It should be, I know my tires are black and I know I have a 50 amp service. I know my tires are black and I have a 30 amp service. If you know those two things, man, you're right up there. You're a smart RVer. You know more than that. You're an expert RVer.
Right.
All right. What happens are, generally, when you take your 50 amp outlet or a 50 amp cord and plug it into a 50 amp outlet at an RV park or maybe your house, it goes in real tight. You have 4 prongs that hold it in place. It goes directly in and it sits there and doesn't do anything. And it just fits nice and tight. And it'd be the same with a 30 amp, but there's a difference. RV parks have more 30 amp RVs in them than they do 50 amp RVs. So 30 amp outlets at RV parks typically are going to wear out much quicker than their 50 amp outlets.
Right.
And so when you plug in, like recently, in fact, our last episode, I think I talked about it. We were in Cardwell, Montana at the RV park there. And, you plug it into the 30 amp outlet and it starts sparking and arcing as it's going in, which is not a good sign. A little something is one thing, but continuous, because the outlet was so loose. And my surge protector actually was discolored and hot when we left 2 days later.
Oh, boy.
And I knew it was going to be like that. I was kind of testing the market there, if you will, or testing the waters to see what would happen.
Oh, boy.
Take it to the extreme. But, and then, with that being said, too, if you have a surge protector and you're plugging into an outlet like that, let's say it does melt the end of the surge protector, kind of sucks to have to cut off that factory end and put on an aftermarket end.
Yeah.
You can do it, but it kind of sucks. Anyway, back to the melting. So it's always bad connections, or you're taking a 50 amp and reducing it down to 30 amps, and where you're plugging it in, the outlet's not tight, or even your 30 amp cord could be worn out, or the adapter, and that creates a loose connection. You shouldn't see sparks. You might see a spark when you plug in, but you shouldn't be able to move it around. If you take the cord out, it shouldn't be hot. The prongs on it shouldn't be discolored. It's very important that they're not. I just realized I'm hardly even looking at the camera as I'm doing this.
Oh, wow.
Well, you guys are listening. It doesn't matter, but we do put this on YouTube eventually. Well, they're in La La Land. Mm-hmm. It's a podcast. I don't have to look at the camera, right? All right, anyway. Right. A little sidebar there to distract me. So it's the connections. So when your adapters are starting to wear out, replace them. And when you buy adapters to go to, let's say your house, 110 volts, the typical house outlet, you'd plug a lamp into. So you get adapters for those to take maybe your 30 amp to the 15 amp is what it's called. Those adapters, some of them are like $4 or $5, $3 on one of those ghetto websites on the internet. They burn up very quickly. You want to buy a cord typically. Now, Camco makes an adapter that's yellow. It's nice and heavy duty. And it's about $10. And it works really well. It's not going to melt like the cheaper ones. The black ones especially. They're the ones that just melt right up. If you buy a pigtail, like a 12 or 18 inch pigtail, they work a lot better too. They're heavier duty. They last. They're going to last as long as you own the RV, unless you lose it, probably. So it's not really that complex. We can go on forever, but I'm not going to spend forever talking about this. So it's having those connections. And also when you're going to shore power, the more extension cord you have, the warmer the wire can get, the more critical that your connections when you plug into one another are tight. So if you plug into your extension, your power cord with an extension cord, make sure it plugs in tight. Because those loose connections, especially over a long run, they'll get hotter, and start to melt. If you're using an extension cord, like a regular household extension cord, that you'd plug something into, like a drill or a lamp to give you a little more length, make sure you use a heavy-duty one, preferably a 20 amp, one that has heavier wires in it, because they are a weak link too. And the ends of those things get really worn out if you've had it for a long time. I mean, I have an extension cord, I've had since I'm 20 years old. I remember painting a house in Cerritos, California with it.
Oh, wow.
On a paint sprayer. So I was a paint on it. In fact, it's out in our warehouse here.
I've seen it.
And it's worn out, but it works, for what I'm doing. But for an RV to plug it into shore power, no way, man. Wouldn't happen. So make sure you're using good cords, because when you have bad connections, you start burning things up. And the downside to this can be you might have a $6 adapter that starts to melt, but it can ruin your power cord, the nice factory cord, and then you got to cut the end off of it, put an aftermarket end on, which they work, but it's not the same. And then, you're kind of ruining it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have to do that. And it could cause a fire and, you might have to call your insurance company.
Hey.
Yeah, recovering after an RV accident. We just talked about that. As your RV burns up your house.
Yeah.
The other thing is, so your extension cords, that's what I'm calling them, just your 15 amp extension cords, buy good ones or buy like heavy gauge ones like 20 amp and use those. They're much better. They're better, period, because it's heavier wire. But you don't have to do that for everything, just this one application, and try to avoid that too. If you are using just regular 15 amp extension cord, sometimes your air conditioner might run on those, but it's not advisable because that creates more heat and burns up connectors. And the other thing too is if let's say you do have to add a new end to your cord, a lot of RVs today have the cord that plugs into the side of it. It's called a twist lock, and a little ring that tightens up. Sometimes those ends burn up and they get expensive. And a lot of people, what I see is both pieces need to be replaced, the inlet and the cord end, the receptor, the cord end. And people only want to do one. And they try that with one, and then they're back 2 weeks later buying both pieces now and replace the one they already bought for $50 or something.
Right.
Do it right. If there's signs that both sides are melted a little bit, replace them both. Don't try to cut corners, because you'll probably just be back to the store replacing both pieces sooner than you think and spending your money again. You want to try to save your money here, but not be ridiculous and start a fire or something like that. And then when you're putting a cord end on, if you're doing it yourself, heck, even if you have someone do it, man, you got to make sure they tighten those wires up tight. It's imperative that when they put the wires in, that they tighten them tight. Loose wires cause the problem too, and that you can't see. It starts internally, starts melting inside, then gradually it works its way out, and then bam, everything's, melted or on fire. So if you replace a cord end, make sure it is tight, and that would be for your home, whatever. And also, all the cord ends have a clamp that clamps it to the cable. So you want to make sure that you clamp it to the cable super tight, so when you're pulling on the cable, or the weight of the cable hanging out of the pedestal is not pulling the wires out of the connector internally. Yeah, that being said, so those are nice reminders. Now I know why I'm staring at this. There's a green thing on this monitor that just has my attention. Driving me
Destruction.
crazy. So now we've covered power cords, adapters, and ends and why they burn up. Now you guys are experts.
Woohoo!
So now you can go around to RV parks, be fire marshals. Just kidding.
Yeah, maybe not.
Nah, let the stuff burn.
Oh.
Now we're back on the 10,000 subscribers on YouTube before the end of the year.
Woo!
So I didn't check today to see how many millions more we got, but I know it's increased. Yeah. So everybody share this podcast, share our YouTube channel with everybody you know, become a pest. Yeah, you get like you buy something online and that company now sends you like 65 emails a day. You need to be that for the end of the year. Send all your friends and family 65 emails a day pushing the Smart RVer Podcast and our YouTube channel. Uh-huh. So if you go to YouTube, type in the Smart RVer Podcast, bam, there we are. And then there's videos there, great videos. In fact, I think we're going to hopefully have one out this weekend.
Yeah.
We got a little lax. We've been so busy with stuff, and it seems like we've just had out of the ordinary things coming up lately. So I've fallen behind on some of our production and getting videos done. And even this podcast, we're always doing them last minute now, kind of rushing.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we're losers sometimes. We're coming to the end of our season. So now we're going to be able to get ahead of this and get back on track. So again, 10,000 listeners, right? Not that hard. All right, now let's go to the next stop. And we're going to talk about Ron Hunt. The old man in Whitehall. Now, he might not appreciate that, but he is an old man. He's like 85 years old.
Yeah.
Gets around pretty good, though, for an old-timer. Yeah. So he is a volunteer at the Jefferson Valley Museum. Now, Whitehall is in Montana, 30 to 50 miles west of Bozeman on Highway 90. Whitehall's a small little town, not much there. So we went to Cardwell. Cardwell, there's nothing there other than an RV park and a general store and a schoolhouse. But we just stayed at the RV park, and Whitehall was nearby. We wanted to go check out Whitehall because we like all these small towns and mining towns, the history. And we ended up at this Jefferson Valley Museum. Now, this is what makes these small towns cool. Ron Hunt made Whitehall stand out to me and my wife like more than any other small town we've ever been to, no matter how cool the town was. So the Jefferson Valley Museum, it's just filled with history about Whitehall and what took place there, the people, the faces, and the events over the years. And we didn't know that Ron, when he came out and greeted us, because he wanted to give us a tour, and, we weren't really keen on a tour, to be honest with you, but, it worked out really good. I don't have the patience for that. I like just do my own pace, boom, 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 where's as old as possible, move on. But he took us through it, and he showed us this museum, and he went into detail, but he says, the best thing to do is come back now and just take your own time and start reading all the stuff in there. Because there's a lot of articles, newspaper articles, excerpts from books. In fact, there's some people that have written books about Whitehall, and some of the families there, all the gory details from behind the scenes, I guess.
Oh, wow.
And my wife says she's read one of the books. She's reading another one. She said they're very interesting. They're good reads. He grew up there. He was born there. And what was interesting is, he starts telling us stuff, and he points to this picture, and it's a gas station. And he goes, well, this is my dad's or my parents' gas station. And they bought this, and, at that time it was just one room, and, no bathroom or anything, and they lived there. You're like, wow, that's pretty rough, And then eventually they were to add on a room here, a room there, for more, a little more creature comforts. But he says, that's my dad there. And over here at the gas pumps, this gas truck or this tanker, that's owned by so-and-so. And those little legs right there, that's me. I was just a kid back then, thinking, wow, that's kind of cool. Then he starts talking about people in the town, like one guy who owned a business, and he opened up a gas station when he found out one of the highways was coming through. His name was Seydan something or other, Arabic or something like that. Back then, that's when, you had people from all over the world in the United States. Mm-hmm. And they were accepted, they didn't live in all their little private communities. They assimilated. So he built this gas station, I guess is just like this premier gas station, out on the pumps that had a canopy. Lining the inside of the canopy were all these works of art. It's just unprecedented stuff. But, he's pointing here. Now, this building used to be there. This is where Dr. So-and-so was. This is where he started. Then he moved from there over to this building. Then such and such moved into his old building, and then it burnt down 5 years later. Seems like they had a lot of fires back then, Probably bad electrical connections.
There you go.
They didn't even have RVs. So that's a warning for you. You're not going to find this in every town you go to, but if you like going to these small towns and there's a museum, from now on, we're going to ask, do you have somebody here that grew up here, that lived here their whole life, for the history of it? Or maybe if you see some people that look like they've lived there forever, if you talk to them a little bit, the history is phenomenal. It brought Whitehall, Montana from this town that just didn't even matter to us to this cool little town now that has some meaning. We're not going to move there or anything like that, but it's just, okay, that's a cooler place than what we thought it was. So the whole point is sometimes getting that history from somebody, that personal history from somebody who can bring it to life, can make that trip that much better. So just a little reminder there. There's more to these towns than sometimes what meets the eye. Okay, now we're going to cruise on to RV Envy. We're done with Whitehall. So Ron, adios.
Bye.
We should probably send this to Ron. I think he'd appreciate
I think we
that.
should.
Yeah,
that'd be nice.
In fact, he said that he was asked to give a speech about the town at one of their museum meetings or something, and it was so long it turned into a book and CDs.
Oh, wow.
And he says, I really wasn't prepared for it, but I guess it turned out really well, because he knows all the history, man.
Yeah, he does. That's rare.
And for an older guy, too, man, his memory was sharp.
Yeah. It's his life.
Uh-huh.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
But even the museum itself, even if you went on a self-guided tour, it'd be really cool to see a lot of old stuff there. That's for sure.
Awesome.
All right, back to RV Envy. We are living in very unique times in this world. The United States is going through an election cycle that's like no other election cycle. The economy is getting tough. People are losing jobs. But this is just like a downer of a show today. All those names.
Yeah, it really is.
Man.
What's wrong with us?
But you have an RV, and that's the escape route. Sometimes you just get in that RV, man. It's like a little capsule. You can just get away from everybody.
Yes.
You can go to an RV park. You can choose to associate with people, or you can choose not to. You can go someplace and camp where there's no one at and just get away from people. I can think of all sorts of places like that. Maybe that's just what you need sometimes, to decompress, because things are getting very bad in this world. And until this election passes, where things are always negative in election year to begin with, but this one seems to be a little bit worse. And a lot of bit worse. Don't let all of that just wear you down. You have to look at life as we move on. We just keep moving forward. These things are always going to be in front of us. There's always going to be some obstacle. Your RV is that outlet. So use your RV. Don't let everything in this world keep you from that. Now, it might be harder to afford things, maybe to go on that trip or whatever, but just be smarter with your money. And sometimes being smart with money means you pay a little more up front rather than doing it twice. Like I mentioned earlier in the course, going cheap and only replacing one part of the problem, not both parts. And, shopping online today, there's a lot of cheap stuff out there. It's going to save you so much money until you have to buy it again. And you buy the same one again, and okay, now this one will be better. Then you buy it again. And, there's websites selling stuff that is brought in from other countries, and it's just low-quality garbage. And the RV market is getting flooded with it. It's amazing how much junk there is out there. Every company in China that can make anything and has a contact here, they're shipping it over and they're selling it. And a lot of these companies don't really even exist. And that's the other problem. What kind of customer service are you going to get? What kind of quality are you going to get? Do these companies really even care about the quality? If they get constant flood of returns, does it bother them because there's so much profit in what does sell and doesn't get returned? You have to think about that. And that might sound ridiculous, but you look at some of the big companies in the world today who get fined, $1 billion. They don't even care because they made $10 billion on the product they sold that was illegal.
Right.
So you have to really look at that way. Now it's all relative. These are much smaller dollars we're talking about here, but don't buy stuff just to buy it again.
Yeah.
Buy better quality items. Now, maybe you're not going to buy the top end, but don't go to the bottom end.
Yeah,
especially
please don't.
power cords and electrical items and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Stay away from that cheap stuff. Buy the good brands. Now, with that being said, that we've now talked you out of doing anything because the world's collapsing before your eyes. Just kidding. We're going to change up the show a little bit. In enjoying the RV life from now on, we're going to have content about saving money as an RVer. So we want to help you save some money. And sometimes things are obvious and sometimes they're not. Some of the things we talk about will probably be obvious. Oh, yeah, we know that. Other things might not be. But we're going to start doing more research in that. You know, it might be insurance. It might be your aftermarket warranties, which we already have a company that in the next episode we're going to talk about. Wholesale warranties and the service they provide. They're lower priced and better quality service, if you will, or product that they're selling. We're going to work on this and we're going to try to help everybody to save some money because it's important right now. And then we'll just keep that going. So we're going to adjust and hopefully that is beneficial to everybody. All right. So now, speaking of buying quality, saving some money, if you go to sunpromfg.com, you need a slide out awning fabric. We have 14-ounce slide out awning fabrics that are better quality than the factory, but they're not the most expensive ones compared to, well, yeah, they're not 18-ounce. They're the least expensive on our website, but they're a good quality product and they're at a good price. So if you need a slide out awning fabric, at least check it out. You never know.
Yeah.
And you got our great customer service behind it and our great warranty.
Yep.
So that's worth something right there.
We're Dunder Mifflin.
There you go. Dunder Mifflin. Oh, boy. So who's Mike and who's Dwight and who's Pam and all the others?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
Jim.
figure that out later.
Yeah. What's the chubby guy's name?
Kevin.
Kevin, yeah.
I'm probably Kevin, honestly.
Yeah, just making me think of that episode where he's carrying that big pot of chili into the office.
And he dumps it on the floor.
Dumps it on the floor and starts scooping it back in.
That was killing. Oh, boy.
All right. Hey, maybe we're not the office after all. All right. So one final call out to go check out the smartrver.com or the Smart RVer on YouTube. Boost up those subscribers. And, of course, share the podcast with everybody. And all this information is always on the website at the smartrver.com. So check that out as well. So our next episode is going to be episode 161. And we are floating around between a couple different ideas, so we don't have a heading yet or a title of that episode, but we will certainly be back with it in 2 weeks, episode 161. So we've had a great show today, and hopefully everybody's going to be listening again in 2 weeks. And in the meantime, going to YouTube and looking at our channel there. So this is Eric Stark with the Smart RVer Podcast. It's been great hanging out with you today, and I want to thank you for listening to the show. So if I don't see you on the road, let's connect at the smartrver.com.